the Mareb conflict was not sudden and not unexpected. It was long prepared by the Houthis, who started advancing in Al-Bayda in the April of last year, and then they moved to the south of Mareb Governorate. And during the summer and the fall of 2020, they advanced also in Al-Jawf Governorate. So they basically surrounded Mareb from 3 different directions. And what's interesting is that basically they put on hold this military campaign between the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. And somehow this might raise the question of why they put on hold this campaign and why they reignited it at the beginning of February. I think that there's a clear connection, as Nadwa already highlighted, with the US presidential elections. And somehow this brings me to the first comparison with what we have written in our book. In fact, we can try to compare what happened back in 2016 when there were the previous US presidential elections with what is happening right now in Yemen. And we can observe that US presidential elections, they always trigger a double movement. In a sense, the outgoing administration tries to strengthen their efforts to leave their footprint on the Yemeni file. And back then, you will remember that John Kerry tried to push forward a peace proposal that there was accepted by the Houthis to a certain degree, but probably not by the internationally recognized government. And after the election of the new Trump administration, a new window of opportunities developed. And during that period, for instance, Saleh thought that the connections of Trump and the Trump administration with Saudi Arabia could somehow push the Saudis to stop their advance in their military campaign in Yemen. And at the same time, the Houthis tried to establish new relationships with Russia and China. So the big question is, how is the new Biden administration influencing the situation on the ground in Yemen? And I see a connection between the Houthi advance in Mareb right now and the fact that we have a new US administration that is trying to reopen a channel of communication with Iran around the JCPOA. The Houthis very often talk in a military language, and this could be a signal to the US and to Saudi Arabia. So this could be a first connection and a theme to debate. A second point is the role of ceasefires and backchannel talks with Saudi Arabia. So the first point here is that the backchannel talk between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia cannot be taken for granted, and this is clearly demonstrated in our book. Back in 2015, the Houthis were not capable of establishing a line of communication with the Saudis, and also Saleh was cut off those communications with the KSA. This line of communication was somehow reestablished in 2016, and it led to a ceasefire and then to the Kuwait talks. Something similar happened in 2017 when Saleh decided to turn the page and he started talking with the Saudis in the summer of 2017. So these backchannel talks always had huge consequences for the situation in Yemen. And the last example is from 2019 when the Houthis declared a unilateral ceasefire, and that was very effective because the number of airstrikes and shellings decreased until the beginning of 2020. So the point here is that the ceasefires and the backchannel talks are very often connected, and that these backchannel talks are very effective in somehow pushing the Houthis to accept a ceasefire or to change their behavior on the ground. And it's also interesting that apparently Saudi Arabia did not receive positively the news that of the designation of the Houthis as an FTO, because this could have endangered the backchannel talk with them. So it would be interesting to understand how this whole situation will develop. Also considering that, for instance, Mohammed Ali al-Houthi recently declared that they aim to enter negotiations only with the real decision makers, who are, in their opinion, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the United States. The last point, perhaps, is about Houthi ideology with regard to the Mareb battle. As we clearly demonstrate in the book, the Houthis emerged as a sort of anti-system movement. They had a clear anti-imperialist view, but they gained popularity back in 2013 by opposing the existing regime. Well, now the Houthis are in power, so it's different for them. They are accountable for providing or not providing services, for how they are conducting the war, and for a number of other issues. And basically their ideology has somehow shifted because on the internal side, they are trying to enforce a stricter Islamic moral framework. But on the external side, they are stressing the fact that they are fighting against aggression. And not a majority of people, but some people, at least in the north, in Houthi-controlled territories, are supporting the Houthis because they are opposing the so-called Saudi aggression. So the campaign in Mareb could also be understood as an attempt for the Houthis to gain popularity. Should they fail in Mareb, this would have enormous consequences for their popularity on their internal front. Thank you.